Here we are at Halton on the 7th of June, the day before Chillie's birthday. He's just managed to bag on a floater Jack.
Are you ready?
Oh, we're ready. At 49 pounds and some ounces.
Whoa.
Here he is.
Stay there. Push back. Sure. Hold him, Chillie, hold him right. He's got his goal. Oh, baby.
Let's have it out again.
No, that's enough. Not hanging around.
Does
come back and all he did.
Yeah,
this morning.
isn't it?
Fella.
Coming back to you.
He's going straight to you, boys.
Well, thanks for having us, Chillie. I think we'll sort of start this interview off looking at where carp fishing began for you. So what's your kind of earliest memories of carp fishing?
Earliest memories of carp fishing all revolve around what I read, not what I actually did. As a child, I was given Richard Walker's Stillwater Angling at 6 years old. It was a Christmas present, and it was the only present I wanted to open under that Christmas tree. And I read all about carp fishing, but the biggest thing about that was the first chapter in the book about carp angling itself was called Carp, and the chapter after that was Big Carp. And that is the thing that always interested me. I came from the West Country, as I've always said. I didn't know carp were invented. I spent my time fishing for chub on the rivers, dace, the odd barbel, and in the main stealing trout to sell to my neighbours. And a thriving business it was too. It wasn't until I joined the army when I got my parachute wings that I discovered carp fishing in the Aldershot area. There were some incredibly famous lakes around here, though I didn't know it at the time. All I wanted to do was catch some carp, and really that is when in the mid-80s now, when my thirst for it really began.
When did fox come about?
Blimey, my wife won't appreciate what I'm going to say, and I won't go into any details, but from the kick-off when we got married in 1994, Lynn was an incredibly ill lady, and cancer had struck in several places. It led to other things, strokes and blindness, and I had to basically give up on my army career in 1996. Now, as bad as that seems, and it was for all the wrong reasons I can't even begin to describe, it did at times give me a little bit more time to go fishing. And in 1994 I met two guys that really changed an awful lot of things for me, which was Dave Lane and my great friend Keith Jenkins. And we fished a water very close to here. Actually, it's only 3-4 miles up the road, a place called Chalk Farm, run by the Army. Dave was, and still is, a massively motivated guy, and he was doing some stuff for Fox at the time. And whilst he was doing all the running around like a madman in that commercial world, Keith and I would sit down, have the odd glass of red wine while we were fishing, and put the worlds to rights. But Dave was the one that first introduced me to Fox products, and very shortly after I met him, I started sleeping under an Evolution brolly, a bivvy, and it was an amazing bit of kit. Dave had the prototype that was still leaking, mine was absolutely perfect, and I slept under one of those bivvies until 2007, 2008. Amazing bits of kit, and we'll have a look at the word evolution as regards Fox and my part in it all evolved over the years. But I didn't know that I was going to make a living from carp fishing, and I'll be brutally honest with you, I didn't want to. My life had been spent very much under the radar. I didn't have my photograph taken with people. I just didn't like it. It wasn't again until I met Keith and Dave that things started to change. Keith was writing articles all the time, putting my pictures in, the same with Dave, and in 1996 it all came together. Really, when I went to Horton, David finished there, Keith was still fishing on the famous lake. On my second session, I caught 3 fish from a lake that back in then was extremely difficult, and if you got 3 fish in a year, you were doing well. And one of those fish was a fish that had never been caught in its life under all the pressure it had been under for 35, 40 years. And the other one was one of the most famous carp that ever swam in our lakes, Jack the Net Ripper, at 49 pound and 4 ounces, and I caught it off the top. Which was amazing. I mean, people would say it was on a zig rig, it was on nothing of the sort. It was called an anchored floater back in the day when dinosaurs were still prowling the earth. But that's how I caught it, and people wanted me to write about it, and I found out that I could write. And I wrote several things, and I didn't really want to be involved with the company, but I did. A couple of them would pay me a little bit of money. It was like a little bit of pocket money, to be honest with you. But I was looking for somewhere, if that's what I was going to do, for some loyalty. I'd been in one army for 22 years, and I was specifically looking for another environment that would act in exactly the same way. And it wasn't until 2003 that I knew that Fox I was interested in Fox. I had no idea they were interested in signing me up, and I actually signed on the dotted line around that time. And I have to say, it's the best move anybody could ever have made. I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for free tackle. I did it for the loyalty and the quality of gear that we could produce. And over the years, that's exactly what happened.
How has Fox changed since you've become a part of, the Fox family all those years ago?
It's changed a lot. I think one of the greatest things that happened to me was becoming friends with Cliff Fox himself, and in many respects, although not as deeply, I shared a lot of Cliff's emotions over a few years, from maybe 2003, 2004, up until the point that he sold the company. And what had happened is we'd taken on people that had taken Fox to the next level, to places I don't think people thought it could go. And eventually it became something that money men in the city, I don't know who they are, and I probably never will, but the people wanted to buy it. And I know now that it's been sold 3 or 4 times, and it just shows how impressive Fox is, not just in the carp fishing world, not just in the fishing world, but in the world as a whole. And when you think about the money that's passing hands at these times, it makes me, makes my knees feel a little bit weak. But it's an amazing thing, and it's changed. Obviously the products have changed, obviously the people that own it that change it, but I think it's changed massively with the people that work for it. It has become the army I wanted it to be, with the most special people I've ever met in carp fishing.
So, kind of touched on how Fox has changed over the years. How do you think the industry's changed since you first started carp fishing to now?
The industry itself has had to keep up with the way the modern world is. And you think back to the 80s and the way that carp fishing was, it wasn't the commercial mammoth that it is now. And I don't use the word mammoth in a contradictory way. It is absolutely enormous. Things had to change. Carp fishing had to keep up with the times. In the 80s, a lot of us were still making our own bait. We were making our own bits and pieces. We were adapting other parts of fishing to suit the carp fishing the way that we wanted to do it. In the 90s, it went absolutely bonkers. And I loved that secrecy of the 80s. I absolutely loved it. A lot of people don't, but it is that secrecy. It was the way that the passion was built in the 80s that built an industry that an awful lot of money, an awful lot of people made an awful lot of money from, and it should never be looked at in any other way than makes you smile. You come into the 90s and it just went bonkers, and the creation of all the rig material, the hooks. The hook to me is the most important item of fishing tackle, and the technology that goes into it is amazing. So the industry went absolutely mad for all the right reasons. It's the carp fishing itself, I think, that probably sticks in my craw a little bit. It was supposed to be difficult. Carp were supposed to be incredibly difficult to catch, and unfortunately the equation of the more fish you put in the water, the easier they are to land, has never been truer than it is today. There's so many waters that have got so many carp in it. In a lot of respects, they don't become the challenge that they were. Now it's all about the numbers. How many 40s have you caught? How many this, that, and the other? I had 28 fish today, and all that. And back in the 90s, when I caught Jack from Horton, there were probably between 14 and 16 40-pounders in the whole country. And so many lakes have got 14 to 16 40-pounders in them these days, which kind of lessens the impact that they are. And it leads me on to another point about carp fishing, which is the intraweb, and how much that has spoilt the joy of it all. Once you've caught a fish, 20 seconds later, it's on the internet and you're looking to catch the next one. You can't well in that glory anymore. Again, going back to the 90s, when one person caught a 40-pounder on the lake, even a 30-pounder, everybody reeled in. Everybody came round to congratulate the captor. There was film to take, that had to be sent off. You had to wait. It was like catching it again, getting your film back. And if the press wanted it 2 weeks later, it was like catching it all over again. It was an incredible feeling. And with the demise of Carp Talk, God rest her soul, and other readable material, those moments have gone from carp fishing, which I find a little bit sad. But the one thing I do love is that there are so many people involved in it now. There are so many people getting so much from it, and it changes people's lives, and I honestly hope it always will.
Is there anything within carp fishing that, if you could, you'd change? Maybe things that kind of you're not too keen on, or you'd just like to see more of?
have to be brutally honest, and something that I've never really thought about, anything that I could change. I've spoken about the fact that waters have too many carp in them, and it doesn't become a challenge anymore. If I could, I would change that. There would be a limit on the amount of carp, or pounds per acre, or however these fishery managers describe it. And I would want to make it a challenge again. In saying that, would it still be the massive industry now if you put those challenges back into carp angling? Probably not, because people haven't got the time. And whatever I feel, whatever I've fought for in my life, and whatever I've done, all I ever want is the best for the people on the ground, if you like. And if they can go somewhere, get a bite with a son next to them, for example, then who am I to say that I change a single thing?
Are there any regrets you have in your carp fishing career, or things you'd like to have done differently yourself?
I think at the time we all regret a lot of things we've said and we've done. And the more I look back on my carp fishing, the more I am so happy with what I did. At a time when I was hard at work in the army, where 2 or 3 nights a year was a little bit of a miracle, where my fishing would revolve around a sports afternoon maybe. I would, you know, every capture was a bonus, but I didn't pick the easiest waters. Up at Hollybush, again, only a couple of miles up the road, there was Pit 4 and Pit 5. Pit 4 being an amazingly famous lake. It did the biggest fish in the country in 1974, 38.5 pound, and I fished a lot on Pit 5, and it was so difficult. It really was an amazing place. And yes, I've got some regrets, maybe about some of the waters that I should have got a ticket for, that I should have tried to fish while I had a chance. A lot of those waters don't exist anymore. Those fish have passed on, or maybe the place got filled in and they built houses on it, you know, all those kind of things. But I think they're the only regrets. I've made more mistakes than the average man in my carp fishing, but it's those mistakes that make my captures that much better. Knowing that you made a mistake before, knowing that you put it right, knowing that you got that bite. And yeah, I may rue the day that I got so many things wrong, but I don't really want to change anything about my past. I think it's wonderful, and I've, you know, where I've ended up and how my life has ended up in terms of carp fishing, just couldn't get any better.
Kind of the complete opposite of that previous question. What's your sort of favourite moments in carp fishing? Not necessarily a capture, but the things that sort of stand out in your mind the most.
Things that stand out in my mind the most. We spoke about them earlier on, meeting Dave Lane and Keith Jenkins. Even though was in the army, those guys are 2 of the greatest friends I've ever had. Keith's moved over onto the Isle of Wight. Dave lives up in Suffolk now. We're a million miles from each other, but we're still friends. And meeting them was an amazing day, and has carried on for the past 20 odd years. That was wonderful. A lot of it revolves around the people that I've met, you know, people that I read their stuff that they did. Peter Springate would be a classic example of that. I met Sir Pete in 1994 when he was fishing at Horton, and I was going up there to visit Keith while he was still on there. I didn't have a ticket at the time, but to meet Sir Pete was a wonderful thing. So it's very often it's the people that you meet that complete the whole carp fishing party, if you like. I think the day that I signed for Fox is an amazing day. Because it changed everything for me. I didn't want to be someone that people hung clothes off, that had to have a picture taken of holding a fishing rod. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want money for that. I wanted to be part of the team. I wanted to be part of product development. I wanted to be part of the whole media cycle of it all. And Fox was the one place that I could satisfy all those needs, and hopefully satisfy their needs of me. So that was an incredible day. There has to be some fish, doesn't there? And there have been some incredibly special carp over the years, but I cannot deny it's not the biggest carp I'll ever catch, but it is definitely the most special. Again, I mentioned Dick Walker's book, Stillwater Angling, a little while ago, and in it he speaks of catching his 44-pound common from Redmire Pool all the way down there in Herefordshire, and I believe it, I used to run past the end of the road that led to Bernethan Court, where Redmire is, on a regular basis when I used to run from Hereford to Ross on Wye. And I never went and visited it, never wanted to see it. And it wasn't until I caught a 44-pound common, 44 pound and 4 ounces it was, from Frimley Park, again, 2 miles up the road from here, that my whole carp fishing world, I almost gave it up at that point. I didn't know that there was anything better that I could catch, but there are other carp, of course, but I don't think anything will ever get any more special than that.
What's your life like on a day-to-day basis? What's sort of Chilly like away from the camera?
I'm probably sat on a big part of it. And as you came into the bungalow today, you walked past another, which is my big yellow Dodge truck. I do 2 nights a week carp fishing, and the rest of that time for me is all about having some fun with Lynn, my wife. She's not always well enough to go and ride the motorcycle or go out in the truck, but we have some fun, and that's all I really want from my life, is to spend my time with her and do a little bit of fishing. It's been a little bit difficult for both of us just lately, but yeah, my life revolves around, certainly in the summer, taking my bike out. Yeah, when it's raining a little bit, we get the truck out and just having some fun. And I rarely think about fishing when I'm not on the bank, which might amaze some people. I can write, I can actually type quite quickly, and at the moment it's a little bit difficult for me to sit there staring at a screen for long periods of time. But you know, I love writing, so I do a lot of writing. I've probably got another book in me. I think I'm writing for all 3 of those mainstay magazines now: Carp World, Total Carp, and Carpology. So you know, I've always got something to go at. But yeah, fishing's for fishing. Being at home is about having fun with Lynn, and I'll keep it that way for as long as I can.
I guess in the past, fish have determined where you fish and what you go for. But how has your fishing changed over the years? What sort of gets your fires burning now?
Oh, fires burning. It's a quite difficult question considering what's just happened to me, and I think simply the fact that I can still go fishing is a little bit of a result, and I'm high-fiving life as I speak. But in terms of the fish that I fish for, I think for me it's more about the environment that I'm in now than it is about the size of the fish that I'm fishing for. There are so many big fish out there, so many of them, and it's like anything, the more there is of it, the less special they become. And I'm not suggesting that an individual isn't, like, you know, almost peeing his pants because he's caught a big fish and he's happy and he's smiley, but we talked earlier about, you know, people don't reel in anymore to go and see someone and shake someone's hand because he's caught a 40-pounder. I just want to go to places where the carp means something to me. There's a picture behind me of a fish. I still don't even really know what his name was. Called the river fish, and I caught it from a little lake in Essex, and it was a fish that I really wanted to catch, and I put him in a retainer, and I rang up a guy called Brad Walker, and he stood right here actually, and he came down, did the photographs, and sharing it with someone special from Fox made the capture that much better. But it's not the biggest fish I'll ever catch, but it is a stunning animal, and those are the fish that I want to catch. I don't want to catch a fish because it weighs a certain weight, although it hasn't got a mouth, it's got no fins, no scales. I want to catch it because it means something to me, and as long as my carp fishing goes along that way, I think I'll just keep on doing it because it's the one thing that I enjoy so much.
You've been extremely loyal to Fox and Mainline throughout your career. Do you think it stems from your military background? Absolutely.
I'm not the kind of guy that I don't. The reward I'm looking for is loyalty. I think it's probably one of the most priceless commodities out there in the world, and working in very small groups of people as I did in the army, that loyalty was tested to its limits, and I found everything I wanted, and it was the one thing in my life that I never thought I would get once I became Mr. Chillcott. I found it, you mentioned mainline baits, through meeting Keith Jenkins and Dave Lane back in the early 90s, and I've been there now, a serving man with a bait company longer than anybody else on the planet, really, and it's been wonderful. It's everything that Mainline do, everything that they develop, I've used and had wonderful success with, and Kev Knight and Steve Morgan have become wonderful friends of mine, and the same thing has happened at Fox. It's been an amazing experience with me, especially when the team that exists now eventually got everything together and functions like the best oil machine I've ever come across. Led by Sean McSpadden, there's Scott Day, Harry Charrington, Lewis Porter, Brad Walker. We've taken on a few new guys that I haven't really got to know yet, but the team itself is an amazing thing, and it is that that team effort, the way that we all work together, is the thing that benefits the guy who has to go in a tackle shop and buy all the gear that we make, and it is one of the most satisfying things I think I've ever done, and yeah, long may it continue.
So being at Fox, you obviously tried and tested a lot of products. One of the most tested products probably being a rod. And you've spoke to me before in volumes about the different rods you've tried and tested, and you've said to me you've kept them all so much so that your loft's actually sort of dropped by a couple of inches. What's your sort of favourite rod you've had since you've been at Fox?
You say about the bungalow, I think the centre of the bungalow, the roof is 3 inches lower than the outside because of the amount of gear that goes up there, but they are... Everything has meant something to me. I look at a set of rods, a Evolution bivvy or anything, and it just reminds me of things. So I'm afraid they gather dust up in the loft, but rods are, well, they're a massive part of it. And this was one of the first rods I used at Fox. And there's a word on here, I think, that probably sums up a lot of what has guided us over the years, and this is an evolution. And again, as I say, it was one of the first rods I used. I loved it, caught loads of fish on them, but it was the word evolution, and it's amazing how things evolved over the years. And we made loads of ranges of them. We did all kinds of different things. We even ended up on the Matrix with a green blank, and I've got a set of Matrix rods up there that were built, 6 of them. They're the only ones in the world, the St. Lawrence specials that were built for me and another guy to go and fish the World Championships in America in 2005. Yeah, amazing bit of gear. One of the best things I remember about developing rods was a conversation I had with Cliff in the meeting room one day. I'd gone up there as the Fox consultant to have a chat with the rest of them, with the product development team, and they brought out this fishing rod with a handle that I don't think anybody really understood, to be honest with you. Handles seem to be something that don't need to be there. They don't need to be comfortable or whatever. And Cliff used a word, and it was called ergonomics. And I'd never heard the word in my life. But if you hold this rod, it is so comfortable in your hand. It's unbelievable. It never caught on, but he was telling me about the wheel in his Ferrari, the steering wheel, and how ergonomically satisfying it was or whatever. So, having just come off of a lake, covered in mud, covered in grass, bits of twigs and all the rest of it, I walked outside. I smoked in those days, so I was going to have a cigarette. And I saw his Ferrari parked outside Fox HQ. So I climbed in and grabbed hold of the steering wheel. And I'd never ever heard Cliff get angry about anything. But he got angry that day, and he just said, I think you need to get out of that car. And when I got out, I was trying to explain to him about the ergonomics of his steering wheel. But I must admit, I was a bit more worried about the grass and mud I'd left in the interior of a 200 grand motor. But yeah, it was a funny moment with him. You talk about favourite fishing rods, and very often I look at rods because of the fish that I've caught on them. Now this is a very, very interesting rod. In the catalogue at the time, I don't think it was even in the rod department, and it was called the Euro Warrior, the forerunner of a very, very famous fishing rod. And I ordered them, and I got 3 of them sent through the post, and it was right at the start of my little Ashmead campaign there, all the way down there in Somerset, in search of a fish called single scale, and everybody took the pee out of me because I think they were $59.99 in the catalogue, and obviously we had other things going on at the time, but I wanted to use these, and they were a rod that everybody could use. And in January of 2010, on this very rod with this very reel, I caught that fish over 53 pound, which is amazing. And that rod and its friends, a couple of them up there, will stay in my possession forever. They can put them in my coffin if they want. If I had a favourite rod, it'd be the Warrior. And I apologise to everybody at product development of Fox for not picking one of the more expensive ones, but it's what it means to me, and I think that is massively important.
I think it leads us nicely on to our final question. What does carp fishing mean to you?
Wow, a little bit of everything really. It's such it could be a massive answer, but I think a lot of it revolves around the fact that it saved my sanity on so many occasions, through my military career, through the problems that Lynn has faced for years, 30 years. It's helped me to get away from that, think about it, and come back hopefully a better man, in a better place to deal with things. And it's also spurred me on to greater things. It's pushed me on. My military career was all about pushing myself, trying to be the best and do the best that I could. And I think I achieved that in spades. And I wanted to do the same thing when I became Mr. Chillcott. And in between the more important things, like looking after Lynn, I found myself targets to chase and fish to catch, and trying to emulate those brilliant anglers that went before me. And hopefully I've done a little bit of that. I think I've written 3 books, I've got a 4th in the pipeline, and you know, I still look at my books today. I think you know, that it's knowing that I've done it spurs me on again. And I think what I love about carp fishing, as much as anything else, as much as catching the fish, as much as coming up with a plan, as much as putting that plan into action, is talking to people about it, whether that's writing, whether it's like talking to a camera as I am now, is sharing those wonderful moments with other people. And I think a lot of people just want to look at me, and my satisfaction from carp fishing is looking at everybody else enjoying it in the same way that I do.